What's up, YouTube? Poor Man Podcast back with another video. Today's video is going to be how porn ruined my life. Before I get into the video, though, gotta do the YouTube stuff. The goal is 75,000 subscribers by August. It's a crazy goal. It's a big goal, but it's my goal. All right, the way I'm gonna get to my goal is if you give me the HBO special. Do you know what the HBO special is? That's the Help a Brother Out special. All right, so go on and help a brother out. Hit the like and the subscribe button for more content. I'm gonna give y'all a second to do that. All right, now let's get to the video. How porn ruined my life. Let's see what she got to say.
I knew that fame happened when I would go out in public and get recognized. That it wasn't just at porn conventions. And when it happened, I freaked out. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy said, "Hi, Angela," at the gas station. And I thought, oh, this is it. I've arrived. I remember coming home to this beautiful marble floor, gorgeous counters, and I went up on the counter and I just laid there and I cried. Because earlier that day, this old man was on top of me and he was sweating all over me and his sweat would drip into my eyes. And I just look and I just stare at the money, because the only difference between rape in that moment was the money.
And this is what happens when you mix sexual liberation with telling women that you're going to find fulfillment through material things. It seems like, and there was a woman, Sue Browder, the editor and writer for Cosmopolitan in the 90s. She admitted to lying to women and basically trying to pander to women to sell magazines. And what they would do is tell women that happiness and fulfillment can be found through material items instead of through being mothers and instead of through having a family. And this is the result of that, right? You have so many women, because we're humans. We're naturally going to go the path of least resistance. There was a test done by Yale on these apes, right? And they basically introduced a monetary system to apes. And the first thing the female apes did was sell they sold themselves. They committed prostitution so they can have more of these chips, which were the monetary system. They could go trade it in for certain snacks or whatever it may be. And so they took the path of least resistance, and we know that this is what happens as humans. So you have a lot of women going out and saying, well, I want these material things. What's the quickest way to do it? Why don't I start OnlyFans, right? It's especially when you have the sexual liberation movement saying that there are no consequences for exploiting yourself, essentially. And just kind of going back into this concept, I want to open it up again, and I would re-explain it for people that are new to the channel. But I want to talk about Crime and Punishment because I've been reading that book. It's a very long book, so I'm trying to get my way through it a little piece by piece. But it's a psychoanalysis book, and so basically, most of the dialogue in the book is a man figuring things out as they go. So he's the most of the dialogue is internal, right? So he's having conversations with himself about how he feels about certain things that are happening in his life. But the book is about, and I really have to shout out Jordan Peterson for putting me on this book. The book is about a lawyer who feels like he is innately good and a pawnbroker who he feels like is innately bad. The community believes she's bad, and she pretty much takes things, or not take things, but people bring things to her when they're in their worst positions. Basically, she's a pawnbroker. So they'll bring silver to her and she'll give them pennies on the dollar for their items. And because she doesn't give back to the community, she seems very greedy. He believes that if he kills her and takes all of her things, he can do something great with the money because he is innately good, of course, right? And that's what we all want to think. So he goes on, and this is a spoiler. This spoiler alert for anybody that wants to read the book. This is a huge part of the book, and it's pretty well known that this happens in the book. But spoiler alert if you don't want to listen. He then goes on and kills her, right? Not only that, but her sister walks in who's pregnant, and he kills her too. And as soon as it happens, even though he planned everything out precisely, he goes into this very sloppy mood where now there's blood all over the place because he didn't comprehend before doing it how it would affect him as a human being, right? Going against his moral compass, he didn't understand how it would affect him as a human being. So now, even though he was well calculated when he was making the plan, now that he's committed the crime, he's doing just like any other criminal would do in these situations, and there's blood all over the place. He was trying to be very cautious about this because he knew that why do people mess up in a time where it is critical for them to be precise, right? And one of his conclusions for saying that was maybe when they do the act, it is so very different from what they thought it would be that they go into panic mode. And that's what he essentially does. He takes the things that he gets, he hides them. He wants nothing to do with the money. Similar to how you see her right now. She says she looks over and she sees a pile of money and she feels nothing, right? Beforehand, it seems like this is what you want. This is the greatest thing ever. But like in the story, he hides the money. He wants nothing to do with the money. He then goes on to become an alcoholic. He starts to spiral. The only time he feels human is when he's lying about and portraying the image that he never did the crime in the first place. That's the only time he feels human. And he goes into self-sabotage mode, where it goes to the point where he's talking to the deputy or sheriff or whatever the guards were called at the time, because the book was set in a different time period. He talks to them in a sense where he wants to almost be caught for what he did. He wants to be caught so that he can feel a sense of redemption, so he can feel like he can redeem himself to society by paying his dues through getting caught. Essentially, he wants to do the prison time. And I'm not going to go on to what happens later on in the book, but what I'm saying is, some of the consequences and some of the crime, some of the punishment of what we have to deal with is dealing with what we have is going against our moral compass, is having to deal with that for the rest of your life, having to understand, like she's saying now, having to deal with the fact you allowed a 60-year-old man to sweat on your body. And a lot of people want to believe that they can deal with that, but when they actually commit the crime, quote unquote, it's not an actual crime, but when they actually go through with it, they feel internally less valuable. All right, and that reflects on society. So they go, society is putting this pressure on me, when actually it's probably you putting the pressure on yourself. Similar to how the man in the book, he never got caught for the crime, right? During the time where he was panicking, he wasn't caught. Nobody even knew that it was him. But he internalized, he felt like society was putting that on him because he internalized what he was doing. So and so it's just an interesting way to look at how we deal with certain things and the consequences for our behavior. But let's continue the video.
And that's what my life became about. I no longer had friends. I didn't have my family. Money is what I'd have in one hand and a bottle of alcohol in the other when I went to bed. Pornography took everything. I love cooking. Obviously, by looking at me, I'm one of the only ones that know how to cook. That's why I have this size. You definitely don't have to film that part. Pretend like I don't have any bad habits. So I had a great life. I was born 5'8". I've only grown 2 inches since 3rd grade. And my father was a preacher. I was constantly trying to better the world, be a better person, change lives. This is me as a youth pastor. I was about 21 years old in this picture, and this is what I looked like when I got raped. My whole dream of life was gone. Everything that I wanted to grow up to be died on the pavement. I went from that to a party, and this guy owned this website. The model had flaked, and I was like, sign me up. I didn't call myself a porn star because I know what I was doing. I just lost my virginity. I don't know up from down. But quickly people coached me. And I was booked, and I was $400. I now had the reality that there was a price tag on my body. There was.
And this is the sad part of it, right? And I get it. It's definitely sad that these things happen. But what we have to do is and this is a very sensitive topic. Of course, I don't want to go too far into that. Obviously, if that you know that this happened, this is going to be tragic. The A lot of what's going on now, though, is we're trying to soften the world, and I'm happy she spoke about it, even because it brings in the harsh reality of life. It's tough, right? And but what right now society seems to be trying to do is make the world softer to accommodate us, right? And the world is just a hard place. The world is a tough and it's a relentless place. So you have to become hard to fight against the world. There are always going to be people that want to take advantage of you. And that's why if very traumatic situations like this have happened in your life, I always say, maybe you should go get therapy. And I'm happy that Kevin Samuels even speaks on this topic. He says, yeah, if you have trauma, you have to go get therapy, because regardless of your trauma, there are going to be people. Now, people can say this shouldn't be. And I agree with you. This shouldn't be a thing. Obviously, victims of heinous crimes, victims of horrible crimes shouldn't be taken advantage of, but we're in the world. Victims of horrible crimes will be taken advantage of if they don't deal with their trauma. If you have trauma, it can affect so many different components of your life. So you have to go get help for that. You have to not be shy and have to be able to talk to somebody about these problems. And this is just, and with that being said, though, the world is not going to get any easier. It's always been hard for humanity. And I think because we have the luxury of taking a warm shower whenever we want. Most people have internet access. Most people have stoves. Most people can order a pizza from Little Caesars for $5. We feel like, and this has been that way. This has been modern society for a lot of people. A lot of people haven't dealt with the time where you had to go out and find your own water and boil it, right? So we forgot how hard the world has always been for humanity, and now we're trying to nerf everything instead of becoming harder so that we continue to make progress like we did previously. So I'm just saying, the world ain't getting no easier. If you're a person that's gonna be easy to take advantage of, the world will do it. They will. I don't care who you talk to. They can make you feel better about things that have happened in your life. Trust me, everybody has their fight. Everybody has their struggle, and the world does not care, unfortunately. It's unfortunate, but it's just the truth. Let's continue the video.
It was harsh sex, but it took my mind off the pain. Like, if my sex was painful, and the harder and crazier it was kind of like the more you beat me up, the more you slap my face, the more violent you are to me. Like, maybe I deserve this. And that was my new life. And I remember hating when clients would say, "I love you, Angela." I'm like, please, anything but that. You can do anything to my body, but do not say that you love me. Love was a word that messed me up big time. I would pop as many pills as I could get my hands on, and then just drink and drink and drink, trying to overdose. When I would wake up from my suicide attempts, I would get drunk, and it was that realization that I hated who I became. I hated money, and it was killing me. And at the very end, I called my parents when I said, I really messed up. That was the night my parents answered the phone. So through recovery, my parents have been there. When I traded in porn, I got my family back. Now we talk every single day. There is nothing that is worth the life I chose. Now that I'm out of the industry, I want to be a wife, and I want to be a mother. And one thing that I really want is I want to be a friend. I want the truth to be known about porn.
And this is just my final thoughts on the video. the having a family thing, and it's good to see that she seems to be on a road of redemption. Everybody likes a story where you can. She seems to be able to forgive herself for the things that's happened and the things that she's done, which is probably a good thing for her. But the whole family thing, I'm trying to tell you, when it comes to you, when it comes to people going out and being promiscuous and choosing to do so, especially when it comes to benefiting, and I think this is one of the reasons why men in particular are so one of the reasons I think is one of the reasons why men in particular are so unable to be sympathetic to women that are using their promiscuity to for financial benefit. It's because men, you got to go out and work hard to prove your value. Right? You're working. It's going to be very hard for me to feel bad for you when you've obtained millions of dollars through selling yourself, and now that you've done that, you say, "Oh, I don't care about money," and all these things. Like, of course you don't care about money. You have an abundance of it, and that's why when rich people say, "Well, money doesn't matter," or money doesn't bring happiness, I'm like, okay, I think you guys have just forgotten how hard it is when you're broke. Some people get detached, and I have conversations with people who are pretty well off, and they forget how much $5 is actually worth. I'm like, do you guys understand that that's a week's labor for some people? That's half a week's work for some people. Like, and you guys are, and I know you guys are spending that, and you're saying, oh, money doesn't buy happiness. Well, not for you, yeah, because that's not one of your problems anymore. But for the vast majority of people who have to go to work 40 hours a week, money is a huge problem, and it can indeed make them a lot happier if they have access to it. So, but just saying, like, just being able to just having that just kind of wanting to now go on and start a family is still going to be very tough, because regardless of whatever, all this stuff, regardless of the sad story, and regardless of how bad it was in the beginning or whatever you chose to do, at the end of the day, you were a sex worker. And a lot of men don't want to date sex workers, and probably for good reason. We know, statistically speaking, the more partners a woman has before she commits to marriage, the shorter and the less happy her marriage will be. So for good reason, and also because women could go out and have children and bring them back into a man's house and or into the home, and a man could take care of a child for 18 years and not know it wasn't his in the first place. So for good reason, men are still going to be reluctant to date you because of the choices you made. And that's just the harsh reality of what you got to live with.